Hello and welcome Dota fans. This is going to be a replay cast from the Reddit Dota 2 League. And the teams playing today, and I believe this is a private lobby, the season I'm not sure has started yet, but the teams playing today are going to be the Mega Creeps versus Function. Hopping right into the bans here, the Mega Creeps have banned out the Templar Assassin and the Invoker, while Function has chosen to ban out the Nyx so far and waiting on their second ban. Bans so far a little bit unorthodox, I'll admit, with Templar Assassin and Invoker being banned out. That's just not generally too common of bans there. I mean, Templar Assassin and Invoker are both definitely very good heroes, but they usually are not first ban or first pick material. As of this meta, it's skewed a little bit more towards other heroes. Function, on the other hand, picking up some of the more tier 1 heroes generally with their bans. The Nyx and the Treant Protector will be the first two bans out from Function, and Treant Protector has been a big one lately to either pick or ban because his living armor has gotten so insane. It's kind of ridiculous how good it actually is. So he has gotten banned out this game. For better or for worse, he tends to be a bit of a crazy hero. He manages to win all of his lanes, as well as keeping all of his towers alive if possible. That living armor is just too crazy sometimes. So the Mega Creeps going into their first pick with a Rubik. Rubik, pretty much just one of the most versatile supports. It reveals absolutely nothing about their lineup. He can be an aggressive try. He can be a defensive try. He can be a dual lane support. He really is just one of the most versatile supports. And if you go back to something like TI2, he was even played in the middle lane as a mid solo to pick up that blink dagger quickly, pick up all the spells that he can possibly steal as often as possible. So he is one of those heroes that can be played pretty much anywhere. Function, picking up two of the same there. Shadow Demon and Darkseer are both two of the most versatile heroes as well. Shadow Demon, not quite as much as Rubik. He rarely, if ever, sees mid play, although he has been shown to be a pretty decent middle if you can get those Shadow Poison stacks up, as they do a ton of damage. Shadow Demon, very good pick there as far as supports go. Darkseer, also a very good pick. He tends to be running the off lane most commonly. He can shut down melee carries very well, as they do have to come up to the creep line to last hit, and that Ion Shell pushes them back pretty heavily. TMC picks up the Storm Spirit. Looks like that's probably going to be their mid hero, so they have their mid and support as they go into the second rounds of bans here. And Storm Spirit tends to be a very disruptive hero. He enjoys jaunting in and out of battles and kind of just interrupting everything that's going on with his stuns and slows and whatever else he can dish out. And if he can get his mana up and his survivability up, he can be a very annoying hero to play with, or play against rather. Playing with him is quite fun. Playing against him can be quite annoying though, as he starts zipping in and out and pulling your supports and killing off your supports very quickly. It gets very troublesome. Both teams looking to ban out some carries here with the Animage and the Nyx both banned out. Nyx and Animage both incredibly very good carries. Sorry, that was a little bit stumbling there. But Nyx and Animage are both very good melee carries. The Nyx for his spell immunity, and the Animage more so for his flash farming capabilities, as well as his escape mechanisms. Also, his mana burning. You don't want to put a Storm Spirit up against an Animage. If you have no mana on Storm Spirit, you can't go anywhere. And Animages tend to build something like a Manta. And once you have 3 illusions, mana burning all up on you, you're going to be at 0 mana in no time. And that is horrible for Storm Spirit. That's pretty much as bad as it gets. Function, on the other hand, banning out the Nyx, as they probably just don't want to deal with it. Nyx is an incredibly good carry, especially in the mid game. If you can get something like the arm lit up, the boots of, the drums, that's what I was thinking, drums up, the phase boots, that kind of thing up, he can do a ton of damage in the mid game. Nature's Prophet also banned out. They probably just don't want to deal with the global presence there, as Nature's Prophet can get quite out of hand if he farms the jungle early or manages to get a kill or two in lane or something like that. He can get quite out of hand, and he is a viable offlaner, though perhaps not the best, as he does not have an actual escape mechanism. He's not the most amazing, but he's still good. Queen of Pain being banned out from the Mega Creeps, so it looks like Function has their next pick. They could be looking for something like a mid hero, something like a Puck, possibly, to contest the Storm Spirit. possibly even a Batrider, as Batrider hasn't been banned out yet, and that's a little bit surprising, actually. He's made it through 2 full ban phases without banning out, and a full pick phase without getting picked. So that's pretty stunning itself. Batrider tends to be one of the most banned heroes ever. Same with Io, the Wisp. It's perplexing to me that they've actually both made it through the first pick and ban phases and the second ban phase on top of it. So Function could go for something like that, go for something like a Wisp, Chaos Knight core. Mega Creeps could do the same thing really here. The Mega Creeps might actually be better for, I don't know. Actually, yeah, I'd say it'd be a little bit better for the Mega Creeps, as Storm Spirit does have that immense, huge initiation range. So something like that, coupled with, then Function will go for the Outworld Devourer. A very good mid pick, especially against the Storm Spirit. Very, very good at sapping the mana, sapping the intelligence. So Outworld Devourer, geez, they've changed that name, and that still trips me up from Obsidian Destroyer way back when. But Outworld Devourer, definitely one of the better mid heroes, especially to combat something like the Storm. Phantom Lancer will be picked up by TMC, and that makes it look like their next their next support pick would be something like Keeper of the Light, and we'll see if Function wants to deny them the Keeper on this lineup, as Keeper and Phantom Lancer tends to be a very, very difficult combination to deal with in a safe tri-lane. It gets very, very annoying with the Lance spam, as Lance is a relatively high damage nuke, and the mana from the Keeper of the Light, it does get very infuriating very fast. Function will pick up the Gyrocopter as their carry, I would imagine. So it looks like Shadow Demon and Gyro will be the first 2 of a potential tri-lane, a probable tri-lane to be honest, as tri-lanes just seem to be kind of the in thing to do right now. Mega Creeps will pick up the Weaver, looking at their off lane here, and Weaver will be the chosen one there. Weaver has gained a lot of popularity lately, as he has become he is very slippery. He's very hard to kill if you can't lock him down for the duration of his lifetime. He Sakuchi's out, he can time-lapse out, he is very, very difficult to lock down. And Function, that's one thing that they really are missing, is some solid lockdown. Shadow Demon has Disruption, Outworld Devourer has his Astral Imprisonment, and they're pretty much the same thing as far as spells go. They both take a hero out of the playing field. And that's both good and bad. The Shadow Demon against the Phantom Lancer does tend to be very good, as you can create your own illusion army. But that said, there is no lockdown. There is no real disable there. As when you Astral Imprison them, when you disrupt them, you can't damage them. They're just gone. They're gone for 2.5 or whatever seconds, depending on whatever level of Astral you have. They're just gone for those seconds. So it's not like you can lock them down and stun them out. And the Lion being the ban out there, as he does have 2 solid lockdown skills between the Impale and the Hex. Lina will be the pickup, and the Mega Creeps looking at their last support, as the Keeper was banned out. That will be a little bit troublesome for them, as the Keeper and Phantom Lancer combo tends to be a very, very powerful one. The Lina pick for Function is very, very good, as the Shadow Demon and Outworld Devourer both have setup stuns able to lock them down and land the Lina stun. Crystal Maiden will be the pickup from TMC, and that's a very, very solid pick, along the same lines of the Keeper of the Light, actually. Ever since she got buffed, her aura got buffed, so it gives more mana to her teammates and herself. So replacing the Keeper of the Light with a Crystal Maiden is a very good idea from TMC here, as it will allow them to have a lot of mana through the early and mid game, especially if CM decides to level up that aura early. And let's just go ahead and start introducing the teams. Now, it looks like Ari is going to be on the Phantom Lancer, Heck TIC going to be on the Storm Spirit, Player 1 on the Weaver, Errant on the Crystal Maiden, and Dunn on the Rubik for the Dire. Looking at the Radiant here, it's going to be Point Given on the Gyro, Sunfire Storm on the Darkseer, Okamaya on the Lina, Inverse on the Outworld Destroyer, and Rick on the Shadow Demon, Outworld Devourer. I'm going to mess that up constantly, so there it is. Shadow Demon going to be played by Rick here today, and it looks like Rick will be picking up the wards. Courier's already out for both teams, so they're going to start filtering to lanes here. Looks like the Dire are going to be running an aggressive tri-lane, and they have a very, very good aggressive tri-lane, as both CM and Rubik have the ability to lock heroes down with Telekinesis and Frostbite, as well as damage people out with Fade Bolt and the Frostbite and Crystal Nova from the CM. as well as the Lance coming out from Phantom Lancer. Phantom Lancer has chosen to skill Doppelwalk first, though, and that is a relatively normal thing, as he does want an escape mechanism in case he gets in some dire trouble here, as both triple lanes here have very high kill potential. It's not like any one lane is definitely going to dominate. They both are very powerful lanes. The Shadow Demon Lina combo, especially if you can lead it into something like the homing missile or the rocket barrage from the gyrocopter, has a ridiculously high damage output. It's really quite incredible. Looks like Storm will be moving up into the middle lane, while Player 1 will be moving up to the top lane on that Weaver, and it looks like it will be a safe lane Weaver then up against the Darkseer, and that will be definitely a very good lane for Darkseer, or for the Weaver, as the Darkseer can't really harass him that much. If he throws down the Ion Shell on a creep, it's not like the Weaver will be able to really get damaged out that much by it. It won't stop his CSing, as he can just stand away from it. So it's going to be a little bit of a troublesome lane for the Darkseer, as the Weaver does have a pretty high damage output with Sakuchi and the whatever the bugs are, the bugs and the Geminate Attack and the Swarm. Sorry, I never really know what the bugs are called. I tend to just refer to them as the bugs. So it looks like Player 1 will have a relatively easier time here in this lane. And Inverse, once he starts getting up in there in levels, around 4 or 5, he'll probably start dominating this lane, I would imagine, as Heck just will not have the mana to be able to cast off that Static Remnant and get that extra damage and slow all the time. So it will be a bit of a tough lane for him. But then again, any lane against an Outworld Devourer is going to be very, very difficult. It's just a very hard hero to lane against, as you can't do anything with no mana on most heroes, especially most mid heroes. If you have no mana, you have no damage, really. You have a lot less damage, rather. And it just becomes a lot more difficult to take that lane. Looking at the tri-lane down on bottom here, it's relatively tame so far, with both carries trying to get farm, and really neither carry is honestly succeeding very well. The Gyro has 4 last hits, the Phantom Lancer has 2, so it's a very, very tough lane, with the supports doing a good job of zoning out RE from the Radiant here, so he's not able to get really very close, and it looks like the Dire have backed off a little bit and are allowing the Radiant to get a little bit more farm, but it's still early yet, so it could definitely go either way. RE throwing out the Phantom Lance to get some last hits, and it looks like TMC is only level 1, so we're going to keep an eye on him, see if he chooses to skill the Arcane Aura to replace the Keeper pick that they most likely were looking for but couldn't quite get. So it's very possible they'll be looking to skill that up and get the mana boost from that. Darkseer not doing nearly as well as some other lane possibilities because of the Weaver being ranged there. And he's doing reasonably well. I mean, he has 2 last hits, and he's just getting the double Ion Shell out there. But it's rather ineffective against the Weaver here, as Weaver just doesn't have to stand next to those units. It's very tough for a Darkseer to deal with that kind of hero, a ranged hero like that, as he can't really damage him out too much. And Player 1 takes a little bit of damage from it in situations like that, but he can run him around the tower rather effectively and take minimal damage there. So it's just an ineffective lane for the Darkseer, and he's just not going to get too much there. As you can see, an entire wave went down, and he got 0 farm off that last wave. So it is a little bit tough. Inverse, last hitting up on this middle lane, definitely doing better than the Storm with 16 last hits, and going to be kind of an even lane for now, but it looks like the Outworld Devourer is going to be pulling significantly ahead, and the Storm only has 5 last hits, as he can't even really come anywhere near the creep wave without getting Astral Imprisoned, so it's going to be a very tough lane for him to do much of anything. And you see there, he even goes for the Static Remnant, and he can't even throw that out because he just gets Astral Imprisoned instantly. As soon as he comes within attack range of the creeps, it looks like Inverse is just knocking him right out of the fight. So it's good play by Inverse, and very, very unfortunate for Heck TIC here. Inverse is running a little bit low on mana, as that Essence Aura is not proccing nearly as much as he would like. With only a 20% chance, he is going to need a few more levels than that before it procs reliably enough to really spam that Astral Imprisonment out constantly, as Astral Imprisonment does have a very, very high mana cost, so that can be a little bit troublesome. Heck is going to get his bottle out here in a second or two, so that will be very beneficial for him, and he will be able to bottle up these runes rather when time comes. But he is getting that out there to help him out, and that will be very nice for him. Missile going down on Dunn here, but it looks like there's going to be no real follow-up. RE taking a little bit of harassment, but once again, there's not too much aggression coming out from either team on this bottom lane. They both seem to respect the other team's lineup quite a bit, as they both realize the kill potential that both of these lanes have. So just kind of both staying back and staying a little bit farther away from each other, as neither team really wants to take as much harass as the other team can dish out. Orant has chosen to go for that aura. Good choice out from him, as it will allow the Storm to recoup a little bit of his mana. It will allow Dunn and RE here to throw out a little bit more harassment as well. And just as importantly, it doubles on the CM herself, so she will be able to throw out a Crystal Nova pretty regularly, and that'll be very beneficial in allowing the harass and just the lane control to come out from that. Point given, putting up 1-1-1 across the board in his skills just to get a little bit of everything out there. The flat cannon, immensely helpful for creep control as well as hero control, being able to push heroes off of the lane just by the power of the harass coming out from the flat cannon. But at the same time, you can't skip the rocket barrage. This rocket barrage just does so much damage. It's pretty incredible as far as early game damage goes. So a point or two in there will go a long way in earlier engagements, even if the gyrocopter is angling towards the late game, which he might well be doing, especially up against something like a Phantom Lancer. Angling towards the late game is not a bad idea, but you really do have to shut down the Phantom Lancer early, otherwise his late game will just stomp all over a Gyro's. Gyro is a very, very good counter to the PL's illusions, but it's still not even, I don't think. The PL still, all farm equal, the PL still tends to come out on top there. So it is a bit of a toss-up, but not too great. Point given, taking a lot of harass here between the Fade Bolt and the Lance, and Dunn is going to go for it, it looks like, but Rick disrupting him out so he can't get any kind of last hits or Fade Bolt out there on Point given. Point given just taking a lot of harass, but not too bad. He is going to stay in lane, it looks like. Hopefully they'll get a salve out to him in a moment or two. Shadow Demon also went pretty low during that engagement. Just taking a little bit of extra damage there, and the salve will be given to Point given, as he obviously has quite a bit more priority in these engagements than a Shadow Demon. And good aggression coming out from the Dire, but the Dire really needs to be looking to get a kill in this lane. Aggressive tri-laning is great, but if you can't get a kill, it's not always worth it, as the PL in this lane has 20 last hits. Perhaps in a safe lane he'd be up closer to the Weaver at 30-35, so it is a little bit of a trade-off here in attempting to shut down the Gyro a little bit, but also shutting down the PL's own farm. So it would be very nice for the Dire here if they can manage to get that kill on preferably the Gyro, but really just shutting down this defensive tri-lane is the goal, and they haven't been quite successful yet. They haven't been unsuccessful, but they haven't been perfectly successful either, so it's going to be a little bit of a tough fight there. Speaking of tough fights, the Outworld Devourer here is at 41 last hits, while Storm is sitting at 13, and that's really just a rough lane for the Storm. As you can see, he has 10 mana. And, you know, granted he is spamming out his skills and only has one Astral Imprisonment on him, but he has 10 mana, and it's really hard as a Storm to win a lane with 10 mana. And Inverse has managed to max out both the Astral Imprisonment as well as the Essence Aura, so he will be able to spam out his Astral quite a bit more now, hopefully, with the huge mana pool as well as the huge return percent chance. At 40%, it will be almost completely sustainable to spam out at every cooldown. Point given, saving up his gold. Let's see what he's going to buy. He has... Oh, yep, there he goes for the treads, dropping the 1,500 or so for that right away, and just picking those up. Ari has gotten out the Tranquil Boots as well as the Calling Blade, as well as an extra Ring of Regen, so he is able to regen up in lane and keep himself there without constantly buying salves or something of that sort, and that's going to be very good for him and his stayability in lane. Dunn initiating out on Rick, getting a couple damage out on him with the Fade Bolt and the Crystal Nova coming out from the side, the Crystal Maiden, and already taking a little bit of damage from the Dragon Slave from Okimara, but no real danger there for anyone, just a little bit of harass getting thrown back and forth. Looking at the top lane up here, Sunfire Storm on the Darkseer is having a little bit of a tough time at only 18 last hits to the Weaver's 39, and that just goes to show you how well a Weaver can do in this lane. Especially as a safe lane, it's very easy for him to stay alive and manage to get as many last hits as really possible in this kind of a lane. And it's going to be a very good game for the Weaver, it looks like, as he is up to 2,600 gold and will likely be spending that gold relatively soon, unless he wants to rush something like a Radiance, which wouldn't be too bad of an idea in this game, as a lot of low health supports and that kind of thing on the Radiant here, between the Shadow Demon, the Lina, even Outworld Destroyer, Devourer, whatever, tends to be very low health. As you can see, sitting at 800 life. That 55, 45, whatever, 60 seconds. Let's check real quick. It changed a bunch of times since Yep, 50 damage a second coming out from the Radiance is going to add up very quickly on these low health supports on the Radiant. So it would not surprise me to see him go for an early Radiance or something like that and kind of try to extend his usefulness a little bit later in the game. Rick taking some harass from the Fade Bolt and the Phantom Lancer's Lance. And Phantom Lancer has picked up a Soul Ring, and combined with the Tranquil Boots, that will allow him to throw out a lot more harassment, and especially coupled with the CM's aura. And that is level 2, so she is going to look to get a few more extra points in that versus her damaging spells, just to allow everyone else to spam out their skills as much as possible. So going for a 1-1-2 build with 1 in Frostbite, 1 in Crystal Nova, and 2 in that aura will allow her to give her allies a little bit extra mana while still keeping a presence on the battlefield early. But just looking at Phantom Lancer's mana, it is going up quite quickly, which is very nice for him, with 3.3 extra regen. That's going to be very handy for throwing out lances and doppel walks as much as possible, and that is going to allow them to push this lane back a little bit. And as you can see, Point Given taking a lot of harass here from the Fade Bolt and the Lance, and the Nova on top of that. Rick disrupting the Phantom Lancer is going to get another Lance to the face from him, though, and going quite low. Point Given throwing out the Flat Cannon to try to ward off any more aggression, but the Shadow Demon is very low. Point Given also going quite low, and RE just throwing out Lance after Lance thanks to the Soul Ring and Crystal Maiden, able to just get the harassment out constantly. And RE is going to be able to regen up with the 7.4 regen from the Soul Ring and the Tranquil Boots, allowing him to just stay in lane despite the harassment coming out from the Radiant here as well. And it looks like the Darkseer has gotten his Mana Boots as well as his Ring of Soul Ring up, rather, and that'll allow him to throw out tons of Ion Shells, and that'll give him a better chance in lane, but still not fantastic. More damage coming out onto Point Given, and Point Given, I can't help but think he might have been better off going for the Tranquil Boots this game, as the Treads are a great pickup for, you know, later in the game, but they just do not provide the regen that something like Tranquil Boots does. And as you can see, the Phantom Lancer really needs that kind of regen, and it seems like the Radiant here might have been better served with more regen. Darkseer has started creep skipping. I don't know, it seems like he probably should have started this a little bit ago, and even at the beginning of the game, early in the lane, when the Weaver can't really harass him that badly, but he could still get a lot more last hits on the creeps going like that. And it looks like there's some aggression coming out here. Ari getting a little bit low, as well as the Storm Spear getting a little bit low from that middle lane, but everyone will just heal up and be happy. And it looks like the Storm's going to TP bot, possibly looking for first blood. Point Given and Rick are both very low, and the Storm does have his ultimate, and he will initiate in, and right on Point Given, the pull in there. One more hit up on Point Given, and Point Given will be taken down, and Heck is just going to keep backing off here a little bit. No real anything coming out from the Dire and Radiant. And the Radiant will to give up another kill with Lina going down to that Phantom Lancer. And those are the kills that the Dire are looking for in this lane. That'll allow them a lot more advantage. And that'll really vindicate their choices of having this aggressive tri lane after those kills. And it looked, oh, nope, just going on an image of the OD there. Thought he was real, wasted a bunch of mana, but no real loss there. No huge cooldowns blown or anything like that. So it is going to be still a relatively good trade, well, an extremely good trade for TMC, but not an intensely massive loss for FFX here, Function. It's not good, obviously, but it's not the end of the world. Point Given has almost comparable farm to the Phantom Lancer, and if we just look at net worth right here, they're only about 600 apart, and at this point in the game, it's not like that's an absolutely unsurmountable difference or anything like that. They are certainly behind, but it is not the end of the world. And it looks like player 1 is going to come in here. He's building an MKB first. Rick is getting very low. Rick will go down. Point Given is also extremely low here, and I'll take back what I said. That is another 2-for-0 trade going for the Dire here. The Dire really clamping down on this lane with player 1 and the Storm Spirit here coming into the lane and kind of routing the tri lane from Function. And that's going to be a huge, huge advantage now coming out for the Dire, as both the Storm Spirit and the Weaver got the experience and the kills and the gold from those kills down on the bottom lane, while the tri lane of the Dire are also going to be able to take advantage of that with gold and experience. The experience isn't going to be too drastic, a little bit under a level perhaps coming out from that advantage from the Phantom Lancer versus the Gyrocopter here. And the real difference here, I think, is going to be the gold, as the Phantom Lancer has jumped up to 1100. He doubled his advantage during that engagement over the Gyrocopter here, and that is going to allow him to really do a lot of damage. And it looks like the Outworld Devourer is going to try to engage here on the back side, and there's no detection, so they will not be able to see him under the cover of that Invis Rune. He sees the courier flying around, but he has a quarter of that Invis Rune less. They're going to have to jump on this very soon, and the Dire backing off, except for Ari. Ari is still in here, and he does not have a mana. Oh, nope, there he goes for the mana for the Doppelwalk. Inverse comes out of his invisibility. Dunn taking tons of damage, but Inverse getting stunned up by the Frostbite, throws out the ultimate and gets the kill on the Shadow Demon, or the Rubik here, and as well getting the kill on the CM. On the other side, Ari does manage to get a kill on the Shadow Demon, and that is going to be a good return kill, but a 2-for-1 going there for the Radiant, and that was a much needed engagement for the Radiant. Inverse doing tons of damage with that orb already, as well as his auto attacks, finishing up that 4-staff, and it looks like he's going to be going straight into his BKB. Very advantageous engagement for them, and that will close the gap here for the Radiant. Weaver engaging from the backside. Player 1 just kind of throwing out some damage up against Okimara there. A little bit of a misstep from Player 1, but he does manage to get out of there with the time-lapse, throwing in even more damage out on Inverse here on the OD. Gyro is very close to going down. Sunfire Storm on the DS looks like he's going to go down as well, and that is a 4-for-0 trade for the Radiant here. That is very bad. Their entire tri-lane as well as their off-laner, well, actually, their mid-off-laner and their carry all died there on top of one of their supports, and that's going to be devastating for their early and mid-game. It's going to take them a long time to recover from that, if they even can recover from that. So that is going to be a very good set of kills for TMC to take here from Function. Heck, just warding off the creep wave while they try to take this tower. If they do manage to get this tower, it's going to be huge, and it doesn't look like the Radiant are really going to try to defend this. So it's a 4-for-0 trade, right on the back of a 2-for-1 trade for the Radiant, but a 4-for-0 trade, kind of canceling out all the advantage there, as well as the tower on top of that, really allowing the Dire here to step on that advantage. And it looks like the Weaver will be going for the MKB first, as I mentioned vaguely before that team fight. He will be going for the MKB first. Already has enough gold pretty much for the another 100 gold or so for the Demon Edge, and he'll be able to finish that up. Phantom Lancer well on his way to his Diffusal Blade. Another couple hundred gold, and he'll be able to finish that up. Throws out the Lance onto the OD, and Rubik stealing the Sanity's Eclipse. That's going to be huge if he doesn't die here, but it looks like he is going to go down, not before throwing out the Eclipse, but not doing it nearly as much as he wanted. The Weaver kind of out in the middle of nowhere here with no mana, and he will be killed off as he didn't have any mana. Inverse getting pulled back by the Storm, but Storm is kind of booking it out of there with that haste rune, as he does not want to engage 4 versus 1. Good choice on him for running away as fast as possible. The OD is going to lay chase, but not going to catch up to him. The Homing Missile is out, but it doesn't look like it's going to be too much of a threat for Storm Spirit, as everyone is kind of backing off. Ari is going to come in and look for an engagement here, it looks like, but he will just Doppelwalk right on through with no detection still out on the Radiant. And it looks like Weaver bought back. They're looking to engage on this, but the Radiant see the buyback and instantly just back off. Very smart play from the Radiant there. They really don't want to take a 5-on-5 fight right now, as they just don't have the supporting items overall to be able to carry that fight, especially up against how farmed the Weaver and the Phantom Lancer are. Inverse is pretty farmed, as he is leading the creep kills chart, as well as the gold per minute and the net worth, obviously. He is leading up about 1,400 or so above the Phantom Lancer, but that's just, one hero like that is just not enough, especially when they don't have all that much life on Inverse here yet, and he doesn't have his BKB quite yet, so looking for that 5 versus 5 fight would not have turned out well for them, I don't think. Aaron has gotten up his Tranquils, and the OD is going to walk unnoticed right through the middle of everyone, but his invisibility rune is about to run out, but he's got the Rubik alone if he wants to take him, and he will engage right on the Rubik, gets another couple hits, so he will get the lift off on the OD, but OD will drop the ultimate and not get the kill from that. Close, but no kill there as Gyrocopter takes that tower. Inverse taking damage from that Diffusal Blade is going to take a bit of mana off there, but not too bad. The Gyro in way too far now, out of position, drops the call down. That's not going to stop them from killing him off. A little bit of a slow going out there on both Ari and the Storm Spirit, and the Disruption coming out on the Phantom Lancer. Phantom Lancer doesn't have enough mana to get away from this one, or life, and he will go down. Errant getting taken out now. The Laguna Blade coming out from in, and Outworld Devourer getting another kill. Outworld Devourer here going pretty well, getting quite a few kills for himself, and it looks like he might get another kill on the Storm, but Storm is going to make it away, as well as the Weaver also making it away. He time-lapses right back into the middle, though. A little bit of a misplay there. He was able to get away, but he time-lapsed back into the middle of their team. Dunn running in there, throwing out the telekinesis, but not going to be able to follow it up. The Weaver time-lapsed from out here back into the middle of their team after they had already let him go. So it was a little bit of a misplay there and allowed the Radiant to get another important kill there in that engagement. I would definitely give the advantage to the Radiant in that engagement. I didn't exactly count the kills, and the respawn timers are too slow, but it looks like it was a 3-for-2 trade there, and a pause coming out there, as apparently someone is AFK. Errant maybe AFK? I'm not really sure. Oh, Bio AFK. He's going to the bathroom. I'm brilliant. It's fine. It looks like the Radiant are just as confused as I am. I'm guessing it's a bathroom break for them, but yep, looks like, yeah, body time. The Dire coming up with some creative names for all of this. But definitely a good trade. 3-for-2 there for the Radiant. And they need to make those little trades, especially when Inverse manages to get all of those kills. He is well on his way to his BKB with only another 35 gold or so to that last item, and that will really help him be able to come into these fights and do a lot more, as the Storm Spirit won't be able to lock him down, the Telekinesis won't be able to lock him down, the Frostbite won't be able to lock him down, so he will be able to just kind of run around in the middle of those fights for as long as his BKB will last. He'll be able to get as much damage out as possible, and it doesn't look like there are really that many good BKB carriers on the Dire here. Storm sometimes go for BKB. I've seen Weavers go for it, but it's not generally the biggest item for them. So it will be a very, very good game for an Outworld Devourer to do a lot of damage, it seems like. So good choice there by him, able to get the BKB up this early. It's going to be very helpful for him to run rampant in these fights and do as much damage as really possible. It looks like Hectic is going for the Orchid Malevolence, that's what it's called. Looks like he's going for the Orchid. He does have his first staff up, but not quite the second staff yet. He is looking for that, but it's going to be quite a while there for him. Errant gets the Bracer and the Magic Wand up, looking pretty fine for support, so he is doing rather well for himself. And Dunn looking about the same with Boots, a Bracer, and a Wand, as well as Wards, so they're doing rather well for being supports. Inverse does choose to finish up that BKB now, and like I said, that's going to be a key item for him all throughout this game. Point Given gets his Shadow Blade up. It looks like he's going to be going for a more mid-game oriented approach, as they're not really looking to go too late against a Phantom Lancer, and that's totally understandable, as Phantom Lancer tends to be one of the best heroes late game, and they will throw out quite a bit at him with the Call Down and the Astral Imprisonment, but it wasn't a real Phantom Lancer. They throw down a ward, but it was just an image, as the true Phantom Lancer had already decided to book it on out of there by then. It looks like there might be an engagement here. It's going to be a little bit strange for Inverse here, as he has no mana. He doesn't even have it up. He does have enough mana for one orb now, but that's it. He will have one orb. And he does get a little bit more mana as time goes on, but you need a lot of mana as an OD. It's going to be really tough for him. He force taps the Phantom Lancer in, and it disrupts him immediately. Popping the BKB, he is taking a lot of damage. Throws off the ultimate, and that will do a ton of damage. But the Weaver going down immediately. The Darkseer's Wall coming out, splitting the fight in half here. And it looks like it will be a 1-for-1 trade so far with Gyro trading for Weaver. Hectic is getting backed out, and he will go down to that Dragon Slave coming out from the Lina, Ari, and Aaron, and Dunn. The three left all looking very low. That burst damage coming out from the Radiant is doing huge damage, and even though they are not as farmed as some of the heroes, like the Phantom Lancer versus the Gyro, the OD as well as the Lina able to do tons of burst damage there, and that wall really forcing the Dire back really helped them out with that fight. That burst damage coming out was huge and allowed them to take that fight very easily, trading 1 for 2 there. But on top of that, they also got the tier 2 tower. So that will also be a very good gold advantage for them, allowing them to catch up a little bit of that lead. Gyro took that opportunity to hop right down to the bottom lane and start farming up again. Looks like he'll also be going for his BKB. Good pickup from him, as once again, just like the OD, he wants to be able to run around during the fights. He doesn't want to get locked down, because as soon as you get locked down, you die. Against a lineup like this, if you can't run away, you're not going to be able to live. And positioning is going to be key for all of these heroes. So being able to pop that BKB and get more mobility during these fights is going to be huge. Ari is going to find Inverse here, and the dust coming out immediately. Sunfire Storm taking tons of damage right away, though. BKB pop from Inverse. He's starting to damage out on that Queen of Pain, and this fight is getting a little bit split here. Disruption coming out on Hectic. Dunn will be going down. Lena coming out. Hectic is going to try to TP away, but he is going to go down as well. Weaver on the other side of the fight here will manage to take out 2, though, and he will not be going down, and Inverse will be trading his life for this, though. The Diffusal Blade coming in handy for Ari here, and they will get a triple kill on the Weaver. 4 for 2 fight from the Radiant here, for the Dire rather here, and that is going to be the kind of engagements that they want to take. It was a bit more of a fractured engagement, as as soon as the CM here started getting hit, she ran directly northeast. And that was a very good play from her, just trying to get away from the damage. And that also forced the OD to waste a little bit of BKB time and a little bit of attacking time in chasing her. And that allowed them to kind of split the fight up and get a little bit more hectic infighting going on, allowing them to get the Weaver in there on the backside to get a couple kills of their own, and allowing them to take that fight rather easily. Point Given TPing into the middle lane, dropping the call down, and going invisible, but no real damage there, and it looks like Weaver will be able to take that tower without really any contention. Weaver does have enough gold to go for that MKB pretty much as soon as she wants, but looks like she's going to save up at 2,800 right now, and she's farming extremely well for being against a Darkseer. Darkseer, once again, not the most effective in lane, but Weaver is doing quite a good job at this point in getting good items. The MKB coming out very early is a reasonably good decision, I think, especially since she went for some of the damage items in the 2 javelins, and then went back for other items like the treads, like the wand, allowing her to have that early game damage, but also have the mid game damage rather, but also have the MKB so that Gyro isn't able to get that evasion at all and allow it to have any kind of advantage. On top of that, the Weaver is going to love that extra plus damage, as that Geminate attack will allow that damage to double every couple seconds, 2.5 seconds or so. It'll allow that damage to double out and do a ton of extra damage there. Looks like there's some dewarding going on down here on bottom, but they're not going to be able to spot that Radiant ward up here, as the Sentry ward range is just not big enough here. Usually people place it right by the rune here so they can get both ledges, but they chose to place it on the high ground here, and as such are not able to deward this Radiant ward. The ward coverage from the Dire here show that they are trying to be a little bit more defensive. With this ward up on the high ground in their own jungle, they are trying to clear out their own jungle. And it looks like Outworld Devourer is going to take down the Phantom Lancer as I'm talking about wards. Boring stuff like wards and Phantom Lancer goes down. That's going to be a huge kill, as the Phantom Lancer is managing to farm up quite nicely, but the Outworld Devourer says that he's having none of that, buys the gem, and manages to take him down. It looks like he's going to be going for possibly a Rod of Atos at this point to slow everyone down, and this is a result of them not really having any reliable disables. If they don't have those disables, Inverse can't damage someone out, and that's a big reason behind the 4-staff there. It looks like the Gyro will go down, catching the very tail end of that engagement. Player 1 probably just initiated in on that with the newly finished MKB, and Errant just picking up the final Frost Nova there at the tail end. Inverse is going to initiate onto the back end here, trying to catch the Weaver out, but Weaver does Sakuchi away and manages to get out just fine. As I was saying, though, Inverse here is going to be going for a little bit of a mobility build kind of thing, as he does want to be able to catch other heroes and make sure he can stick on target, because the longer he sticks on target, the more damage he does, and without those hard disables, it's going to be a bit tough. So pulling out the Rod of Atos here is going to allow him to get a bit more health, a bit more mana, and most importantly, stay on those heroes. The other option here would have been a Sheep Stick, but the Sheep Stick will definitely take a lot longer to complete, as it is significantly more expensive and does not provide as much health, I believe. I believe the Atos provides a little bit more health, but it's relatively even in that department. But it's basically the difference between Sheep and a slow. So it's a hard disable versus a slow, but at the extra cost of probably an extra 2,000-3,000 gold or so. So that is going to be a huge difference in cost, and that will allow him to get out the Rod of Atos a little bit sooner and get that mid-game dominance going a little bit faster, as once again it looks like the Radiant are just not trying to take this ultra late against a PL. So he will go probably for the Rod of Atos here and manage to get up that a lot faster and get a lot more efficient fighting a lot faster, which is going to be huge in this mid-game. And that gem is also going to play a huge role in dewarding, allowing them to do stuff like that and just knock out those wards immediately. Looks like they're going to go in for Roche, but the Dire are pretty well aware. Hectic throwing down the Static Remnant, and I'm not sure if that gives them total vision. They see that Roche is not there, so that will give them enough vision to be able to take this fight. And it looks like player one will get disrupted, oh wow, huge combo coming out from Gyro and the DS. Big damage coming out from the Lina ultimate as well. The burst damage there allowing them to just knock out the Dire here. Between the call down, the Lina ult, the DS wall, all of that combined just to smash the other team in huge damage numbers. PL is going to wander right into that wall, but choosing not to walk through it quite yet. He will walk through it, and that makes them well aware of what's going on here. Inverse doing tons of damage up against this PL, and PL will go down to Inverse here after not having that doppel walk up, and even if he did, he had a gem, so it's not like it would have done much of anything. Huge kill coming out there from the OD with that huge damage coming out from his orb, as well as the gem playing key roles there. The Frost coming out will almost get the kill on point given here on the Gyrocopter, but Outworld will pick up the Aegis and initiate right up the hill onto the CM. May have overextended a little bit here. He will pop the BKB and might be able to get both of these kills. Drops the Sanity's Eclipse and gets the Rubik, but might have to back off here because the Storm is TPing in, so it might be a little bit overextended if the Storm chooses to jump on this, but there are 3 heroes there. The Storm will jump in and manage to get that, not quite, very close with 60 health left on Inverse. Huge duration on that. Disruption coming out from Rick. Crystal Maiden managed to get the Darkseer kill on the other side here. Rick will get pulled in by the Storm and will be on the run now from the Weaver. Weaver going to be able to get a lot of damage on him very quickly, but the Gyro coming in hopefully to ward off any aggression. The Dust getting popped off on player one, and it is going to be a 3v1 right here with the Storm just kind of screwed around on the backside here. Player one taking tons of damage. Time lapses right out of it though. Does have that Shadow Demon extra damage dropped on him. The oof. I'm not good with names today. The Lance coming out on point given though, and it looks like the Lina will go down to the Storm on the other side of the fight. Point given does get the bugs dropped on him, as well as the Diffusal Blade being wasted on him, used on him. Dusted out, but they will not choose to pursue underneath the tier 3 tower there. And that was a good chase from the Dire here, and that's something that they want to be able to do, is get that chase on with the Diffusal Blade, with the Sakuchi. They have a great chasing game, and that will really allow them to do a lot of damage as everyone's running away. Yasha coming out on RE here, while the Weaver looks like he's building up into that Linken's. Linken's tends to be a first item for most Weavers, but this Weaver has chosen to go for the MKB first and then build into the Linken's. That's going to give him a little bit of a trade-off there as far as the survivability goes, as he isn't as survivable as early, but on the other hand, he was able to get 8 kills thanks to that MKB damage, and will really allow him to put out a ton of damage, and now going back for the Linken's will give him that survivability that he's been lacking in these fights. He has been going down extremely quickly during these fights, and this will allow him to stay up every 17 seconds, block a spell, and allow him to stay alive quite a bit longer. Radiant knocking on the tier 2 door here, and it looks like Storm is going to drop the Static Remnant just to scout everyone out, and then just jump right away. Lance coming out on the bottom side here on Rick, and it looks like Inverse is going to try to initiate on the Storm Spirit. Storm Spirit not too low on mana, so he will be able to jump away here if he doesn't get stunned out, and he does manage to get that jump away and survive. Does end up with about 350 health, so 330 health, so he will have to go back and heal, but at least he managed to make it out there. The stuns and all that not quite connecting in a row well enough to get the kill. The Radiant might still continue to pressure on this tier 2 tower, as they are all still at full health and full mana thanks to Inverse's Essence Aura there. That will allow him to stay quite healthy, and the mech up on, I don't even know who, the Darkseer, yep, mech will allow them to stay in these fights even longer, but that means the Dire will be able to mount a 5-man defense here, as they are also all healed up. Push coming out now, and the Lance being thrown out from the Phantom Lancer, and Inverse really able to deal with those single illusions very well thanks to that orb doing an extra 400 damage to the illusions. It will really help him. clear those out. Flatcan doing tons of damage to these supports here, but on the backside, the Weaver is going to get disrupted out. Inverse is forced to use his BKB. Storm jumping in, but not able to do much there as that BKB is out. RE is going to go down there to the illusions from the Darkseer, and the call down thrown out, but not hitting much of anything. Weaver is going to hit with the Laguna Blade, and that's going to do tons of damage. Inverse Astral imprisoning him and not going to let him time lapse on out, and Lina will manage to get that kill immediately after the disruption. Very good combo there, and I'm not sure if they planned it like that, but it worked exceedingly well with the Astral Imprisonment lasting 4 seconds. That Weaver ult jaunts him back in time exactly 5 seconds. So it gives him a very, very fine window. If he can't hit that window perfectly, he can't time-lapse out of all that damage. And it looks like Hectic did manage to get the deny of that tower. Very good jaunt in and the deny. So that was a very good play from him, but the Radiant still definitely getting the better there as they managed to get the Phantom Lancer and the Weaver in that engagement, as well as the tier 2 tower. So that is going to be a very advantageous engagement coming out of the Radiant here. And they are starting to get quite a bit ahead as far as net worth is going, with the Outworld Devourer getting about 3,500 or so in front of the Weaver, and about 4,000 in front of the Phantom Lancer, giving him quite a bit of gold to play around with. He does have the Aegis still, so he's not too worried about being such low health in the front line of the battle, because they can focus him, drop him out, and he can just come right back up with his BKB active, and he will choose to waste the Aegis here and come right back out. No engagement coming out from the Dire here. They knew they just wanted to pop the Aegis, as Outworld was just kind of standing on the front lines asking for it. Okamaya taking a bit of damage from the Phantom Lance. And let's take a quick look at the gold graph and the experience graph. Gold graph looking slightly skewed towards FVX here, as they are about probably close to 6,000 or so gold ahead of the Dire, which is not insurmountable, but it is a pretty significant advantage at this point in the game. With the experience graph also being about the same, it is going to be a close game, but the Radiant do have a reasonably significant advantage, and if they are able to continue running with that advantage, they may be able to start snowballing into the later and later game and keep that Phantom Lancer down. Phantom Lancer still hasn't picked up anything really since that Yasha. He might go straight into the Manta, but he really needs a heart. In all of these engagements, he's just been dying immediately. And as a Phantom Lancer, you really can't have that. You need to be able to last through these engagements, and you need your illusions to be able to last through these engagements. So going for a heart instead of the Manta at this point, I feel like would be very advantageous towards this Phantom Lancer and his survivability. Hectic has managed to finish up that Orchid, and that's going to be huge for them, allowing them to lock down the Lina, allow them to lock down the Gyro possibly, but he doesn't really have too many spells. The Outworld Destroyer more likely going to be the target there if he doesn't pop it. Oh, and RE taking tons of damage here, will go down. Hectic jumps in the middle of the fight, but he does not want to be there. He jumps out again, is really low on mana, and he's going to take a couple more right clicks and go down to that Outworld Devourer. Not managed to get that final ultimate out in time. Huge kills for them there again, taking down the Storm Spirit and the Phantom Lancer. That's really going to allow them to take this next fight at the tier 3 if they choose to. Dire Courier also going down, and I'm not sure if it had anything on it as far as the items go, but it might very well have had something. It looks like it might. Oh no, Phantom Lancer had about 1,800 gold, so probably didn't have anything for him. I'm not sure if it had anything for anyone else on it, possibly for the Weaver, but I don't quite know. So it is still definitely going to be a very important kill, and it looks like the Crystal Maiden is going to be building towards that pipe, and that's very, very important against the Radiant team here, as the 400 extra soak-up damage from the pipe shield will help them deal with that Lina and Shadow Demon, as well as the Darkseer. And Rick is going to be diving the tier 3 tower and taking a ton of damage just to that tower. Disrupts Dun and purges Errant, but it's not going to do a whole lot. He did take a lot of damage off that, but it looks like he will be okay for now. RE has rejoined the fight, as well as the Storm Spirit, so they will be able to chase away this knocking on the tier 3 tower. Doesn't look like they're going to give up quite that easily. Surefire Storm does get purged up, but has the Surge, so he will be able to surge himself away from any damage that he might have, or any aggressiveness that he may have taken there. As you can see, the Weaver's just kind of sitting on the backside of the fight. Inverse knows he's there, though. They have that ward on the high ground, so he will Force Staff up on there and try to get that. And it looks like Outworld Devourer has gone back instead and realized how much they are ahead and gone for that Sheep Stick. Very good decision coming out from him, as they are very far ahead, and that will allow him to lock down the Weaver, lock down the Phantom Lancer, and lock down the Storm Spirit, and really make that kill possible. And that kill really came out purely because of that Sheep Stick, and the Sheep Stick really paying dividends for him. might still get the Rod of Atos with that Vitality booster, but it looks like he made a very good decision in recognizing the snowballing that they could possibly do here and taking advantage of that. Gold per minute is in favor of the Outworld Devourer, with the Weaver coming in close second there, but the net worth really speaks volumes about this game, with the Outworld Devourer being at 15,000 net worth, and that is hugely, hugely important, as he is able to pick up all these items and Snowball. Comes in and drops the Astral Imprisonment on Storm, but does get purged out. It looks like he might go down here. He's going to have to pop his BKB immediately upon falling down, and Storm does get disrupted as well, and it looks like he's going to get damaged out a little bit. Comes out in cheap form, but he is going to just jump away. 3 quick jumps managed to get him out of trouble. No deaths on either side there, but BKBs popped for the Radiant on both Gyro and the OD, and that is going to allow the Dire to take a little bit better of an engagement, but it looks like the Radiant are still going to keep their aggressiveness coming on this tower, but they could really just drop back at this point and take Roshan if they wanted to, but it looks like they're just going to keep going. They don't think that it's really that much of a threat that their BKBs aren't up. The Weaver on the backside of the fight throwing out his bugs. Errant getting purged up, and it looks like he might go down in 1 or 2 hits. Inverse getting really low here. Drops the ultimate in the middle of the fight, though. Takes out the Phantom Lancer and Storm Spirit immediately. Lina going down to the Weaver on the backside of play. Weaver is going to have to hop right on out of there. Inverse is extremely low on that Outworld Devourer, but he will. It looks like he will survive. Doesn't even have to pop the Sheep Stick yet. Storm Spirit will buy back to try to defend this tower, but the tier 3 will go down. He jumps in on Point Given. Disrupted out, and Point Given will be frostbitten up, and it looks like he will go down to that Storm Spirit. Weaver taking out the Shadow Demon on the backside of play, and it looks like the DS might go down here as well, as the Storm Spirit is going to be able to chase. Not quite able to get that pull off, but will get one last hit out on him and manage to get that kill. Outward Devourer buys back into the game, but before that, it was a 5-man wipe. Darkseer does manage to get the kill on Rubik, most likely with that wall. Yep, looks like that wall managed to pick him off there. But it was a 5-man wipe for the Radiant, and that will be huge in allowing the Dire to get back into this game, as they were looking quite out of it. And we take a look at the gold graphs and experience graphs, and you can see that dip coming out, and I'm sure the graphs haven't quite updated yet, but I'm sure there's going to be another dip coming down here. The gold topped out a little bit above 7,500, but they may well be able to bring this back at this point, as that gold graph likely will start going down a little bit. Looking at the experience, same story, and the experience graph sharply down after going up to a little bit above 7,500, close to 10,000, so that will be pretty huge in allowing them. And Storm Spirit almost going down to Roshan, but he will back off and heal up a little bit. And the Radiant still holding their gold advantage, but looks like the Dire are going to be able to take this Roshan, as there's not much aggression coming out from the Radiant here. Outworld Devourer is going to stumble right on in there, but they are aware of it, and they are going to back off. With so little left, though, they need to finish this off. They're so close. Hectic is going to have to back off. Player 1 finishes off himself and grabs the Aegis. He does have a gem on himself and the Aegis, so he will be able to contribute to these fights quite a bit. Does pick up the Ultimate Orb and the Linked Sphere recipe, so he will be finishing off that Linked Sphere in one fell swoop. In the meantime, the CM has finished off her Pipe of Insight, and that's going to be another great item for them. Being able to stop the Lina and the Shadow Demon and the Darkseer doing quite a bit of damage in these fights. We'll be able to block about 400 damage coming out from them. And it looks like the Phantom Lancer will be finishing up his Manta style. He does have a couple hundred gold to go there, but that will come out relatively soon for him. But the advantage is still quite a bit going towards the Radiant here. The Outworld Devourer is still 3,000 gold ahead of the Weaver, but that's not insurmountable. Once again, it's still a huge advantage, but it's not the end of the world. The Dire can definitely still come back from this if they take another fight or two like they did this previous fight, getting the full team wipe and forcing the buyback from Inverse here on the OD. They are able to come back from this. It's not the end of the world. They do need to defend this barracks, though. If they lose this Rax, it might be disastrous for them. This is going to be a big fight, and everyone's ultimate's up outside of CM's, but he dies too quickly for it to matter too much anyway. But it looks like the Dire are going to just kind of back off a little bit on either side here. Player 1 getting his Linked Pop. He will get purged up, and Laguna Blade, he's not going to be able to time-lapse out of this. Aegis will be popped. Inverse dropping the ultimate, doing huge damage to RE and the Rubik here, and it looks like Phantom Lancer will go down. Player 1 is back in the battle here, but what can he do? All of his teammates are dead. Errant goes down in 2, maybe 3 hits from the Outworld Destroyer here, Devourer, and Hectic will be the next in line. He has no real mana to jaunt too far, and he will go down here. Weaver does manage to pick up the 2 supports on the backside, but it's not going to be the end of the world for the Radiant. The Radiant do manage to get the kill on the Weaver, and that is going to be a full team wipe for the Dire here, and they are going to be able to take this Rax, it looks like, possibly even another Rax if they choose to go for it and knock down another tier 3 tower. Dire does pop their glyph here, and that will delay them a couple seconds, but I'm not sure that's going to be quite enough. The Phantom Lancer is back in 12 seconds, but I don't know if they'll be able to really stop this. Lina buys back and will be trying to come back into the action, but killing off all the little structures in the way. Doesn't look like they're really going to go for another Rax. They are just going to knock on those tier 4 towers, and looks like they're going to try to go for a little bit of the GG push, but they are going to be forced back as everyone is kind of respawning here. Inverse coming right in against RE, doing tons of damage, but taking tons of damage himself. He will be lifted up and thrown down. BKB's up and managed to turn around and get some damage out there. Kills off Rubik very quickly, as well as the Crystal Maiden, both of them just absolutely melting. BKB's popped on both of the Outworld Devourer and the Gyro, managing to get 2 more kills, but they will back out as they don't want to lose their heroes too badly, and the tier 3 here is getting a little bit of damage dropped out on it by the creeps. The Gyrocopter here has gotten up his Helmet the Dominator and has just finished up his MKB, so he is looking a lot stronger. He has been farming up quite well lately throughout this game, so he is going to be able to pick up quite a few extra items. And it looks like the tier 2 here on the bottom, nope, it was already gone, looks like. So creeps pushing in, but they will be able to clean those up. Inverse just farming up a bit of extra gold. He does choose to go for the Rod of Atos now, and that will help him in locking some people down some more, and definitely a good pickup. Give him some more health as well, some survivability. Survivability never hurts, especially on an OD, so that will definitely help him out in the long run here. Storm Spirit still has not progressed his items very far at all. Same with the Phantom Lancer. He has finished off the Manta, and that will definitely be important. Point Given is going to initiate on him, but does not have a gem, is not able to follow RE out of here. The Homing Missile will follow him, but Ari will just let himself get hit, it looks like. Yep. So he'll take a bunch of damage from that and hopefully be able to run away before they can find him there. OD TP's in, and OD is going to come up and doesn't get the sheep off quite in time. Does get the Astral Prison off, but the Manta coming out from the Phantom Lancer. RE is going to be on the run here, running away, and Inverse does not manage to get the sheep out on the Storm Spirit. Drops the ultimate, gets Rubik and the Storm Spirit, and one huge damaging ultimate, and that is going to be huge kills for them, allowing them to knock on this tier 3's door once again, possibly take the top racks now. Odie's mana pool is up at 2,900, and that's going to allow him to do absolutely insane amounts of damage. The Darkseer has picked up his Shiva's Guard now, and it looks like they are going to be able to take this fight. With 2 heroes down, there's not a whole lot the Dire can do. They don't have their glyph up for quite a while longer as well, so it's going to be a very tough defense from them if they can even manage it. Ari throws out the lance, but gets disrupted up immediately. Tries to run away, drops the Manta style to throw out some illusions, but just not able to get those kills that he's looking for. Weaver comes in, manages to pick off the Shadow Demon on the backside, but Astral Imprisonment coming out from Inverse. That gem paying off for him, managed to force that forward, and the Lina landing that clutch stun there. And that's the 3rd or 4th time this game that Lina has been spot on with the disruption into the stun there. And I haven't remarked on it before, but that Lina has been doing a fantastic job of landing those stuns. Only missed 1 or 2 so far this game, it looks from my view. And Inverse will manage to get another kill on the Rubik, BK being up, get another kill on the Phantom Lancer as well. GG's will likely be coming out any minute, and GG called by player 1. Great game coming out here from the Radiant. I'm not going to say that either team got out drafted, as both teams had very viable drafts. That aggressive tri-lane from the Dire was quite good, but it just was not enough to shut down both the OD and the Gyrocopter. OD steamrolled that middle lane, and that really allowed them to lead to this win. Thank you for joining me here today, and let's take one last look at the gold graphs at the end of the game. Looks like it'll top out around 15,000 gold, a little over 15,000 experience, so that's going to be huge for that game. And it looks like this game is just about over. A little bit of all chat going on, trying to figure out the games themselves. So, I'm SeeC here, bringing you this cast from the Reddit Dota 2 League. Tune in and check me out at youtube.com/SeeCDota. That's SeeC Dota at youtube.com, at twitter.com, and at twitch.tv. Check me out there, give me a follow, give me a subscribe, give me some likes. I'm up for anything, and let me know if you want any of your games casted. Thank you for joining me here tonight, and have a great night, Dota fans.